A tragic day that became a symbol of the return to the spotlight of the far right in the US amid the presidency of Donald Trump. It happened on the 12th of August 2017 in Charlottesville, Virginia, when a car with a young neo-Nazi at the wheel was driven straight into a crowd. Even the day before, the Unite the Right rally, which brought together white supremacists, Ku Klux Klan members and neo-Nazis, had organised a torchlit nighttime rally that ended in violence. Then, on the 12th, members of Unite the Right gathered to protest against a planned removal of the statue of General Robert Lee, the Confederate general during the American Civil War. Despite fears of renewed clashes, the demonstration was authorised by a judge in the name of freedom of expression. As feared, scuffles broke out with counter-demonstrators made up of local people and anti-racist activists. The police eventually intervened to separate the two sides, but the anti-racist demonstrators gathered again just a few streets away. It is there that a young white supremacist activist, James Field, drove his car into the protesters and then reversed as well, running over passers-by alike. He killed a young woman and injured 19 others. Within an hour of the attack, President Donald Trump spoke out, condemning, yes, the violence, but criticising both sides.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. On many sides.
Well, his words caused a wave of indignation, even from within his own camp. So 5 years after the tragic events, have the wounds in Charlottesville healed? What has happened to the victims and the perpetrators? Is the American far right still a threat? Well, Fanny, Allard, Matthieu, Mabin and Gorgistani revisit Charlottesville for France 24.
We're at the site where a car drove into a crowd with an attempted mass murder and only succeeded in murdering my daughter, Heather Heyer. She was passionate, she was fierce in her determination to make the world a better place. However, she was a nobody in town. She was not a known activist. She was not a public figure. She was just a woman who showed up to walk with her friends that day.
Susan Bro regularly visits this makeshift memorial, set up on the street where neo-Nazi sympathiser James Fields rammed his car into the crowd, killing her daughter. Fields has since been sentenced to life in prison, but 5 years on, Bro is still grieving her daughter.
She's my little girl. I still think of her 3 years old with long, bouncy ponytails. Sort of a heaviness in my heart when I see it. I should be here with her, looking at it and not looking at it about her. It is what it is. I can't change that. I'm grateful I got the chance to be her mom for a while.
Despite her personal pain, Bro does not forget the bigger picture, calling out the hateful ideology that fuels the American far right.
There are definitely forces who work to stir up controversy and stir up hatred and bitterness. They believe that people like me are stirring up victimization and hatred and bitterness the other way. I'm not saying we need to hate white people. I am not saying that at all. I'm saying we need to work together and stop hating each other.
The attack that killed Heather Heyer took place in the aftermath of the so-called Unite the Right rally. The protests saw hundreds of neo-Nazis as well as members of the KKK and other white supremacist groups join forces. They opposed the decision by Charlottesville City Council to take down the statue of General Robert E. Lee, a symbol of the state's Confederate past.
There's still very much a heavy aura that hangs over this place.
The Confederate statue was finally removed in July 2021, and the park's name changed to Emancipation Park.
Up until a few years ago, I would call this the gateway to hell. But we stand now on the remains of what was the statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. That's what brought them here from thousands of miles away to come and be a part of this event. They were targeting blacks, they were targeting low income, they were targeting those of the Jewish faith. And why?
Don Gathers is the co-founder of the Charlottesville chapter of Black Lives Matter. A lifelong Virginian, he's seen the social climate deteriorate in recent years and believes Donald Trump's election created the conditions for the violence in Charlottesville.
The Klan very much exists. The difference in them right now, they don't necessarily wear the hoods. They're not embarrassed anymore because of 45 and like-minded folks like him in power. They're emboldened. They don't mind you knowing exactly who they are anymore. They claimed that it was going to be a peaceful rally, and yet they brought with them their AK-47s, their AR-15s, their knives, their machetes.
The night before the attack, the same white supremacists had marched through the University of Virginia campus, bearing torches and chanting racist and anti-Semitic slogans. April Muniz remembers watching in horror images that called up the darkest hours of U.S. history.
Hundreds of marchers carried torches and chanted before fights broke out near a statue of Thomas Jefferson.
When I woke up that morning of the 12th and saw the images of the evening before here, it solidified my decision to go into town, just to stand with my community, to be here, witnessing, be a witness to what was about to happen. Of course, we didn't know what was about to happen.
Before August 2017, Muniz had led a peaceful life. But that day, she was on the front line of the protest when a car rammed through the crowd. She wasn't physically injured, but the psychological trauma remains.
It was a scene that I'll never forget, and and by a scene, I mean it was not just what I saw, but what I heard. The sounds will never leave me. I'm not the same person that I was. Maybe some of that, maybe I'm a better person in some ways because I'll stand up for things a little more. But yes, it definitely, it altered the course of my life. It shifted my trajectory, for sure.
Following the attack, Muniz lost her job and has been in therapy ever since. To help with her recovery, last year she joined 8 other victims in a civil suit against the 25 organizers of the Unite the Right rally.
This was one way that I could affect change. I had the ability to be a plaintiff and to try to hold some people accountable. And it wasn't just some people, right? It was the organizers of this rally. So I said that we did win our case, which means that, they in theory owe us a lot of money, that we won't see much, if any, of that money, but it also means that they can't earn that money, right? If they earn that money, it comes to us. And so it kind of knocks their ability to gather more people down.
Among those convicted was Richard Spencer, the founder of the far-right white nationalist movement, alt-right. Here's how he explained the anti-Semitic chants heard during the rally.
The line was, "You will not replace us," which was a kind of standing our ground. We're not going to take mass immigration or cultural displacement, etc. And then it kind of morphed into "the Jews will not replace us." So it became more nasty and outrageous and so on. I think at that time I was really accommodating to that kind of speech because it was, look, this is a movement, we're tough guys, we're badasses.
Anti-Semitism, white supremacy, the Great Replacement theory were all part of the attackers' ideology. Fields had even tried to contact Spencer repeatedly on social media.
I think this is someone who saw me as some kind of 21st century Hitler evil figure in some way. I don't know. Now, I absolutely do not bear any kind of responsibility for his actions or moral responsibility. However, I do see a lot of these things that I was a part of and that even I created in some ways as getting out of control and leading towards unhappiness and fragmentation and even violence. And I don't want to be a part of that anymore.
At the time, he was a Trump supporter, but says he voted for Joe Biden in 2020. While he seems to have toned down his rhetoric, his ideology remains the same.
Am I a white supremacist? You know, it's just certainly a term. I mean, I want the best for European people, and I want European culture to flourish and triumph. So that is what I want.
After the 2017 attack, the alt-right movement itself fizzled out a bit, but the white nationalist ideology is alive and well. Charlottesville is a small liberal college town about 100 kilometers west of Richmond, which was once the capital of the Confederacy, in a state where segregation was still a reality 60 years ago. Civil rights activist Don Gathers goes to this Baptist church every Sunday. For the past 5 years, with the help of Pastor Jerome Lee, Gathers has been trying to fight ignorance.
Everybody got to find somebody to blame. It happens today. We see this in the political arena. Many of our politicians who have been elected to lead our country blame the other side for the state of our country.
White supremacy is nothing more than an ideology. It's what people believe. Because there is no such thing as a white person who's superior to any other race. So how do you break that teaching? How do you change the mindset? And that's where we are now. That's what's necessary, I think, moving forward.
You have to stand up. You have to address it. You can't put your head in the sand and act like it ain't happening. You're not walking around looking, but you just have to realize that they're still here. It's calm today, but it will raise its head again. Maybe not in my lifetime, but you have to remember the history.
Remember history. That's what Eze Amos wanted to do through 36 pictures. Pictures the photographer chose to show a resilient community rather than one struck by violence.
It's my idea of giving Charlottesville a reason to talk about what happened, a way for us to reflect on what happened 5 years ago, and also a way for us to reclaim the narrative of what happened 5 years ago, in a way of like taking back the story and making it our story, as against the world talking about Charlottesville like, though this crazy thing happened in that place.
These pictures show Susan Bro, whose daughter died in the attack, Don Gathers, the civil rights activist, and April Muniz, the protester. Amos doesn't know any of them personally, but each face tells a story.
This photo was taken while some community members gathered to mourn the death of Heather Heyer. I still remember this very vividly. I was photographing, I looked up on the hill, and there I saw this girl. And you can see in her face, she was confused. And that was what caught my eye. Yeah, that is easily one of my top 10 photos from this project.
The hope is that these pictures will keep the conversation going.
So much change, but yet so much remain the same.
I hear you.
People need to know, and they need to remember. And we need to keep talking. Conversation. You have to keep talking. Don't shy away from it. Don't not want to talk about it. Forget feeling uncomfortable, because if you feel uncomfortable, then there's an issue.
Amos, who moved to Charlottesville from Nigeria 14 years ago, believes that the chaos of 2017 was a turning point.
The city has invested a lot more in growing local minority businesses. They have invested a lot more in housing. There's a lot of new housing projects, mixed housing, mixed income housing, because it came from all of this. It came from the pressure of August 11 and 12, 2017. University of Virginia, just up there, they erected a big monument to the enslaved. There's still a lot of work to be done. But I can tell you this, from a black person living in Charlottesville, that we are doing that work. A lot of people have been emboldened to speak out. So when somebody's messing up, they call them, people will write and be like, what are you doing there? We don't want you there. Get out of there. People talk now, they have a voice.
According to the Anti-Defamation League, at least 131 murders were carried out by white supremacists since 2017. And top law enforcement officials in the Biden administration have publicly stated that white supremacists are now the biggest domestic threat to the homeland.
Fanny, Allard, Matthieu, Mabin and Katavan Gorgistani, revisiting Charlottesville for France 24. That's all from this week's edition. Don't forget, of course, you can catch it and all the previous editions as well on our website at france24.com. More news coming up very shortly. Thanks for watching.